do we want?
Communism.
And when do we want it?
You want it now.
Yeah, now. And who should we vote for?
Me. Vote for me. You talk about infiltration and communist infiltration. It seems like a really stark warning to New York that at the very least you have a candidate here who's played footsie with Hamas, according to his commentary. He's sang and rapped about supporting of 5 individuals who were criminally charged for sending money to Hamas, a terrorist organization. You know, he himself is a Muslim. And I think there's a lot of people in New York saying, what the hell's happening to my city? In just a few short decades, we are here now at the precipice. You went viral, of course, Mr. Mayor, this week with just photos of you, side by side of you and Mamdani on the morning of September 11th. Here's one example. Some of the famous photos of you walking through the streets, taking charge, of course, after this terrorist attack, and just people saying, what the hell's, what's happened to this city? It does seem like alarming, and there are now members of Congress, one of them will be joining the show, Andy Ogles, who's saying perhaps we should denaturalize him or at least do an investigation into this because he lied and he has ties to terrorist organizations. Your thoughts on this, Mr. Mayor?
No, I think that's very responsible request and something government should do. Given the nature of the things that he says, I don't know that we can come to the conclusion or convict him of it, but he raises a real legitimate concern that he's not a loyal American and that he is working. The degree of his involvement in the things that Hamas believes about or believes and the activities he engages in that are pro-Hamas, anti-American, and anti-Israel, to the extent of carrying their flag and burning ours, would suggest there's something deeper to it. And that is there is certainly enough that he's done and said that would justify an FBI investigation that he's a traitor. Therefore, you'd want to know what kind of connection is there. I mean, I did a lot of these investigations in the Soviet era. A guy would come out and start saying, all the professors at the Ivy League schools, even back then, were pro-Russia. But you look at the ones that spent a lot of time traveling there. You'd look at the ones that had come back and they go over the top and attacking America. And they were subjected to FBI investigations. Of course, Hoover got attacked for it, but they wanted to take us over. And they had a weapon that could destroy us. He was doing the responsible thing. And a lot of them weren't eventually put under investigation. But the fact that we investigated them got us an unbelievable amount of intelligence. And right now, we are seriously lacking intelligence. I am so worried about the people who did what I used to do. The way I look at it, I had about 90% more intelligence than they did. We have. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say we have anywhere from 3 to 6 million bad actors in this country, many of which are terrorists. And in fact, nobody can contradict that because nobody knows how many we have and nobody knows who came in. Most of those people were not identified. The ones who were identified are a small minority. Even the ones we checked in, we never were able to check their background because Venezuela won't tell us, China won't tell us. Most of the African countries don't tell us. So the guy comes in and you say, are you a criminal? No. Are you a terrorist? No. How do I know? I call up Venezuela and they don't answer the phone. Maybe every once in a while we have our own criminal records, but those are sparse. They're not the kinds of things I would be used to. I did an awful lot of those checks and 90% of them worked. The 10% that didn't work, we didn't let them in. The burden was on you to show us that you weren't a criminal, not the other way around. See, there's no right to come into the United States.
Yes,
it's a privilege, and since the whole world can't come in, The only way to fairly distribute that among the people of the world are the ones that can most easily fit in and make us better.
Mr. Mayor, we have a very interesting post here from Zohran Mamdani. The last one I'll show you, but it's one where he says that New York City, he explicitly says New York City needs a communist mayor. He says, listen, what kind of a mayor does New York City need? We need a communist one. Here it is. My question to you is this, and since they're just out with this, since he's just being explicit about it and rubbing it in our faces, right? This is the post. These are his words. When somebody tells you they are, believe them. Do you think, I mean, you've alluded to this, but do you think that this is an operation in order to bring some type of horrible tragedy visited upon the city of New York, to use it as like a beacon, that New York is a beacon of American empire and strength, and to like to either plunder it into abject crime, misery, decay, and destruction, or to lay the groundwork for another horrible terrorist attack on the city?
Well, don't I have to say, I'm going to put myself in the position of when I was mayor, where I had to make choices for the protection of the city. First thing you have to do, and to the extent that I've ever lectured mayors on how to be mayor, I would say you always have to take the worst possible scenario. Because if it isn't correct, then you haven't wasted any time, and you've probably improved your efforts to guide things. The guy is inviting an invitation for that. In other words, I don't know how serious that is, but I do know if that is serious, that's treason. If it's serious. And it means the overthrow of the American government. If you've read Marx, if he is halfway
this statement is treason, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah,
I just want to nail down. This statement is treasonous.
This statement is treason if it's a serious statement from a well-educated man. And those two things have to be investigated. Was he throwing this out as political rhetoric, or is there something behind this? Here's what it does at a minimum. It invites the necessity for an investigation, not to interfere in the election or anything else, but to protect your city. Those are the things that are said by somebody who's going to attack your city. And those are the things that were said by people who just spout off and say stupid things. I was there when Ronald Reagan was shot. I handled the Hinckley case. And from the time that Ronald Reagan was shot, we treated the threat on the president's statute differently. We took it more seriously, spent up a lot of resources. But if you said, I'm going to kill the president, even if you were pretty much not really serious, we still investigated you. And we figured it did two things. One, it got us the person that later on, which we're not getting now, says something like that and we ignore. Number two, it stops them from saying it if they're being ridiculous. It wakes them up and grows them up. And you can't run around saying you're going to kill the president without consequences. But we don't put you in jail. So there's a value to, I'm going to give you one other thing off the point. It's the Ashley Babbitt murder. The Ashley Babbitt murder is crying out for a serious and first-degree homicide investigation. I didn't say there was first-degree homicide. I said there is overwhelming probable cause to investigate, which we have criminally ignored. And we've done that throughout the Biden administration, which is why we don't have a system of justice. So, yes, what he said should be investigated. It may turn out he's just a big political big mouth, and he's looking for the most ridiculous thing he can say to get support. Fine. But it turned out that he's had contacts for years, and this is deliberate. But we should know that before we put him in a position of being in charge of America's most serious, biggest city.